Why don't we go ahead and get started? Sometimes people trickle in. We're going to have a sort of special salon tonight because normally I facilitate, but I'm going to be passing it off tonight to Michael Males. He's a new member of the Valley of Light community, and he's Path of the Artisan, and he's also, I think, the youngest male involved here at the Oracle Institute. So I'm going to do the opening mantra and then introduce him properly. The source of all being, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from the fear of death to the knowledge of immortality. Allow us to reunite with you and come to know your mysteries. So let me tell you a little bit about Michael. He is a lifelong musician. He's also a vegan chef and a student of the yoga traditions. His journey has led him as a monk in ashrams at the Hare Krishna movement to raising a family with conscious principles. He lives with his family in Gainesville, Florida, where he is a full-time dad, a yoga teacher, and an Ayurvedic cook. Michael's musical style incorporates his skill with guitar, violin, and percussion to create an ambient, uplifting vibration. Michael seeks to combine these ancient ideas and practices with modern knowledge to help people create a more integrated and satisfying lifestyle. And we're really pleased to have Michael as a non-resident member of our community. So Michael, take it away.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm really glad to be here with y'all tonight and coming together with people with a conscious intention is something that has become really the center of my heart. So I'm really grateful to share that with y'all tonight, and that's so much a part of the Valley of Light community, and the Oracle Institute is just gathering and sharing ideas. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Stephen and Todd tonight, and I'll let you know a little bit about them because we're going to be hearing from them, and we're going to be discussing some ideas in an open format tonight. So Todd Hoskins is a bridge builder between people, ideas, spirit, and action. For nearly 20 years, he has been studying and applying principles and pathways for navigating complexity with organizations, teams, and networks, working through Canopy Gap and Leading from Being, which are also a couple websites. I checked out his websites before all this, and very fascinating stuff. Hopefully we can include those links somewhere if it's not in the email. And Stephen Dynako is devoted to evolving generative endeavors, particularly as a thought leader in the conscious business movement. He is director of programming for Shift Co., a conscious business growth platform whose purpose is to elevate business to shift humanity. So another fascinating program that Stephen has here, another website worth checking out. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Todd. Todd wanted to open it up. And thank you so much for joining us, Todd and Stephen. We're looking forward to hearing from you tonight.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. And we are looking forward to hearing from all of you, too, because we're not going to be giving a PowerPoint presentation tonight or anything related to a presentation. This is a discussion. And it's great to see people from different places, which for me, I think an entry point would be if each person could introduce yourself, tell us where you are in the world right now, and give us 3 words of passion. What are you passionate about? And see if you can do that in 3 words. So I'm going to put that in the chat. Name, location, 3 words of passion. Who is the brave soul that wants to start?
I'll start. Pete Zawatsky. I'm here in Boyd's, Maryland. Long-term Peace Pentagon and Oracle Institute fan. And nice to be here and join for this special seminar, the Salon. Passion. Well, I'm going to truth, love, and light.
Truth, love, and light.
Okay, you can bogart our tagline. That's not fair, Pete.
Hey, that's a free promotion.
You probably helped coin that way back in the day. He used to be our webmaster a long time ago.
Welcome, Pete. Let's all take a breath. And Pete, since you were the courageous soul that went first, you get to choose who goes next.
Well, Katie's up at the top.
Okay. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm in Independence, Virginia. And let's see, my 3 words of passion would be service, compassion, and activism.
Let's take a breath. Who's next, Katie?
Joyce.
I'm Joyce. I'm in Independence, Virginia. And my 3 words in a hyphenated one are music, earth, and big history.
Thank you for stretching the rules. I appreciate that. Let's take a breath.
How about passing it to Tom?
I'm Tom Hansen. I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia. And peace, justice, and music.
Take a breath. Thank you, Tom. Who's next?
You guys both went on mute.
Stephen Leesburg.
Who did you say, Tom?
I think he said me. Can y'all, am I off
okay.
mute now? My name is Steve Truitt. I'm in Leesburg, Virginia, which is in Loudoun County outside of Washington, D.C. I guess you could call me a technology/business consultant in a lot of things over the years. I would say that my 3 words of passion would, passion itself is a difficult word for me sometimes, but I like reliability. I like history, and I mean history in the sense of learning the lessons of it. And I like music too. But since Tom already took it, I'll say I like results. That'll be my 3rd word.
Thank you, Steve. Take a breath. Who's next? Steve, you went on mute again.
Oh, I have to choose who's next. Nora, why don't you be next?
Okay. So I'm Nora, and I'm in Independence, Virginia. I'm here for a sabbatical and for the women's retreat. And I wrote down plants, Mother Earth, and love.
Thank you, Nora. Let's take a breath together. Who gets to go next? We have Laura, Eric, Todd, and Stephen left.
I'm going to pick somebody in Laura's window because we got Mimi and Darcy here too, right?
Oh, so
So can I call on Mimi or is she not there?
She's hiding.
Somehow I knew that.
Mimi's wiped out. Here,
Alright.
here's Darcy. Mimi's totally wiped. It's been a rough week.
I know you guys are tired out. I just didn't want to miss you guys hiding in the background.
Yeah. It's Darcy.
Hi. So I'm an independent, and I say my 3 words are joy, compassion, and Laura said bees.
wait, Laura cannot steal your passion.
No, she's
No,
passionate about it.
she's not stealing. She's helping me because I drew a blank. I had 3 words and I walked over here and I couldn't remember them.
She's our new bee mistress. We have bees because of Darcy, and it's just wonderful.
They are all of our friends now, the bees.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more? Do we have any more surprise people hiding or not
Just
visible?
Mimi, who's gonna stay hidden, I think.
Yeah. Laura,
next?
You're the last one?
Oh, you get to pick. You get to pick, Darcy.
Who's next? Who hasn't gone?
Michael,
think-
Todd, Stephen, and whoever else is not visible.
Well, we do have a lot of spirits here at Oracle Campus.
That was the word.
I don't know if
Spirit
they're gonna
was my
talk.
3rd
We've
word.
got a lot of ancients here. Cherokee.
I'll go with Laura, then our
Okay.
window's done.
Okay. So I'm Laura, and I'm at Oracle Campus too, in Independence. And my 3 words are going to be community and paradigm shift.
Mm,
That's what I'm passionate about.
let's take a breath.
Okay, and now it's Stephen Dynako's turn.
Right. So I'm Steven. I'm in Valparaiso, Indiana, where it's 77 degrees. And my 3 words are life, earth, and collaboration.
Take a breath. Thank you, Joyce, for adding Richard's name. So we have Richard, Todd, Michael left.
Let's go with Richard.
Did I say your name, where you are, and your 3 words?
I got my 3 words.
Okay.
This is Richard in Independence. My 3 words are democracy, truth, and music.
Thank you. Let's take a breath.
OMGs, huh, Richard?
Feels like we should have a jam session or something. Richard, who is next? You have Stephen. No, I'm sorry. You have Michael or Todd.
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 My name is Todd. I am in Saugatuck, Michigan, which is right there, coast of Lake Michigan. And my words are consciousness, vitality, and transformation. Take a breath. Michael.
Hey, I'm Michael. I'm here at my home in Gainesville, Florida, and I'm passionate about food, music, and books.
Let's take a breath. Eric, are you with us? If so, then you get a chance to share your name, where you're located, and 3 words of passion. We see you, and we can't hear you yet. Welcome, Eric.
Ah, did I get
Maybe.
called?
Yes.
Okay,
You get to share your name, where you are, and 3 words of passion for you.
got it. My internet's been hopping in and out. I just realized I was on the wrong Wi-Fi, so you were all garbled. Anyway, I'm Eric Thompson, otherwise ET. I live near Charlottesville, Virginia, and my 3 words are verbs, part of what I call the Trinity of Being, and it's perfecting trust, perfecting love, and perfecting presence.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Let's take a breath. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks for that, Todd. It's great to know everybody a little bit better, just in 3 words. Nice to meet everybody, feeling connected with y'all, where you are, all over the place. So the discussion tonight, the theme, is restoring mature masculine power and vitality when the world needs it most. And I've got some questions that I wanted to throw out there, but this is going to be open as far as questions and answers. Anybody can pose a question and anybody can offer an answer. So I'll open it up. What is mature masculine power?
I can start with that. And it's not an easy answer. It's not an easy question for me to answer either. There's a sense into which mature is a judgment. Like, who gets to decide what's mature and what's not? I do know that the forces of patriarchy and the misuse of masculine power has caused great harm in the world. And it doesn't, my feeling is it doesn't have to be that way. That masculinity is a principle that's embodied by not just men, but all people, and goes way beyond that. There's an essence to that principle. And my feeling in the world right now is that that principle has been distorted. It's hiding beneath the leaves, and it needs to be restored, which is why I'm passionate about working with men and passionate about doing this retreat. And the maturity of it is like being able to understand, feel, and live the evolution of that principle. Whether you're a man or a woman or anything else, it does not depend upon that. It's participating with that force. And of course, we could spend a lot of time talking about what that force is, but perhaps you get a feel for what it is. So that's my start. Thank you, Michael, for the question. Anybody else can jump in.
Yeah, thanks for that, Todd. I appreciate your answer. And I think it can certainly be a judgment as to what's mature or not. And who's to say? For me, that question gets me thinking about like wisdom filled. Like a mature masculine is a wisdom filled masculine, and that can manifest in different forms. It can be informed in different ways, and it doesn't mean that wisdom has to be something that's taken decades and decades and decades to realize. I've experienced people who have deep wisdom who have not been on Earth as long as others, and to me that is connected to one's ability for self-awareness, contemplation, and to really be deeply in touch with what it is that the masculine soul is desiring to express and to bring forth and to share in the world in a generative way.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, both of you. Part of what Todd was saying really struck me about how it's in these times something that's been covered over and it's not being used properly. And when I think of power, I kind of think about how there's an energy that's inherent everywhere. Power is just, it is what it is. We're all born with a certain potential, and it's just about how you use it. And that's where the maturity aspect comes in, I feel. And as far as the judgment aspect, yeah, I think that just requires a lot of introspection, and maturity requires a lot of introspection. And I also like to think of masculinity, masculine power, or masculine aspects as not just something that men have. That a masculine quality is something that a woman can also harness and carry. And that for something to be quote unquote masculine, in a way it has to have like that other, like the feminine, like partner to it. What's the balancing aspect of that masculine? So to me, like masculine means not just something a man has, but it's a quality that generally men have, but women can also harness. But it's also something that in a way like needs a balancing with a feminine aspect.
Thank you, Michael. Is anyone triggered by this conversation? Just curious. Does it make you uncomfortable? Does it feel like there's an edge to it and you worry about where the conversation may go?
This is Nora. So I get triggered by the just masculine power. You know, I definitely feel there's an imbalance, and there's been so many I don't even know how to say it, but there's, you know, been so many assaults on women by men through families, through generations. So the idea of you want the masculine to be powerful and protective and this like guardian, but you know, that's also, that power can be taken advantage of. And so that's what triggers me. It brings up this like, how do we balance this? You know, because it can be very toxic or it could be very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nora, for your courage in sharing that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else triggered or have a response to what Nora shared?
Yeah, Eric has his hand up.
Eric, E.T.
Yeah, all right. What is mature masculine power? I mean, it triggers me in the way that it's exciting to try and like, well, what is that? Like, that is really a term. And listening to the first few speakers, and this is in support basically of what Nora was just saying, but I didn't know how to express it, but as I was listening, I wrote something down. So I just want to read what I think it is that just came through. And that is, first off, it can only be really understood in terms of a relationship between the masculine and feminine. And so we talk about the emergence of the divine feminine lately. And the divine masculine is the consort of the divine feminine. These are not by themselves a sexual identification. It's a life identification or a cosmic identification. So what I would say is mature masculine power is what expresses the sacred eros through a well-founded respect for life and the unity of consciousness that rises up natively from one's connection to the earth and cosmos and in the experience of living in the web of life, and is expressed through the heart in support for the active caretaking of all life and nature. Oh, okay. So that what triggered me is, oh wow, what is it? So thank you for the question.
I was moved by what you shared. Thank you, E.T.
Thanks.
So I want to do a little build on that. And Nora, also responding to your courageous comments there. Some way, this is my opinion, the mature masculine has to protect and make space for the divine feminine that has been pushed aside, ignored. And that doesn't, for me, that does not mean that the feminine gets to supersede the masculine. Like for me, I'm in a lot of spiritual conversations and we're talking about the divine feminine and we're talking about its place in global transformation and the rise of acceptance and those energies, and that's all incredibly important. And the masculine principle, as I think about it, needs to protect that, to make that, to guard the space for that to happen. And so it plays a role that's being not talked about enough, partly because there's been so much harm that's been caused by men and by distorted or toxic masculinity. And I really appreciate a space where I can just talk freely about this, because this is not my everyday conversation.
Yeah, just reflecting on that, Todd, and also Nora. You know, I as I'm feeling into the conversation and what that, like, the masculine power, there's a spirit to it too. That it's beyond person. And you know, Todd, what you were saying about the mature masculine as a protector, you know, that plays out on such a macro scale, because I take that idea and I think about like how, like what's going on, how we're treating the earth. So, and in so many of our systems, human created systems, there's a my interpretation that there's a imbalanced, forceful, violent masculine power that is causing an imbalance in the earth, in our societies. And a lot of it, of course, is expressed through the leadership of men. And it's interesting that the women leaders of countries like New Zealand and so forth have stepped up and faced that and have chosen to do things differently, for which I'm grateful. And I'm waiting for, on that macro scale, the mature masculine to get it and to evolve. And it feels frustrating to me.
I don't know if it's masculine or feminine or neuter, but the problem with the systems, as you refer to them, for the way that we exploit the Earth's resources, is that we don't pay for the externalities. So we don't pay for what stuff really costs. And therefore, we are encouraged, just from an economic perspective, to take more than we would otherwise do if we were really paying for what it truly costs to exploit the Earth in that way. So is that a masculine thing? I guess so, since men have been in charge, quote unquote, for a while. But I could see that happening regardless of who's in charge if you're not thinking that way.
Right. Steve, I could make the case either way. Regardless, it's not seeing the whole.
Yeah.
It's putting on blinders and being short-term focused and not seeing that the choices made that have perhaps a positive bottom line.
It's improved in real life. There's places where they now charge companies for polluting. Pollution goes down. That's instead, the air or the water or whatever you're dumping in it is not free anymore. They do less of it. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Steve.
What I see going on right now is toxic masculinity putting a stake in the ground and trying to preserve its historical power. Mom and I were watching the news the other night, and Rachel Maddow was reciting the chain of events which has led to this new female governor of California, and I do not remember her name, and I'm embarrassed that I don't.
New York, you mean?
New York.
Yeah, New York. And so it was like 3 scandals in a row, and then the same thing happened with the speaker of their assembly, an African-American woman who's now in charge of their local legislature. And we were just talking about how unbelievable that these series of toxic, men and their scandals have resulted in finally having women be able to assume power. And it was just interesting listening to them describe how they view public service. And I guess the point I'm making is just that until we have enough women who are comfortable with their masculine side, in the sense of being leaders and role models, I don't know how things are going to change, because I think the men who are in power, who are toxic, they'll take the whole ship down with them. They are not giving up command of the ship. So I think we're in a really precarious moment as the divine feminine and the divine masculine finally reach the collective consciousness. We still got to deal with these barbarians who are in positions of power, and that concerns me. I just want to say one more thing. One of Nora's first words, and it was my first word, was protection. For those of us who have been abused by men or had family members or friends abused by men, that to us is still, and this is almost DNA level. I know Steve will riff on this, but we do. Women, it is at a DNA level. We feel that men who are protective of us and respectful of us and honor the femininity in us, they're the ones we trust. That's how women are made. And I just really want to honor the fact that men are, getting there. And I think the younger men are really getting there fast, or coming out of the womb that way. I mean, I'd love to hear what Michael thinks about his generation, because what I hear from my daughter and her friends is that things are getting better, that we've got generations coming up who are way more balanced in their masculine and feminine, regardless of gender.
I think there is good and there's bad. we've been like raised in this environment where we're comfortable being friends with women. Like almost in my entire life, my best friends have been women, girls or women. So I've always been, you know, respectful and open, and always had a respectful vision of women. And in a way, I feel grateful for the spiritual journey that I went on, because for me, it was like either yoga with the Hare Krishnas or Tinder and getting wasted at the bars. And I can see that there's like, that was like a real junction for me. And I'm a lot different than my friends in a lot of ways because of that. You know, I never got on Tinder. I never really got into this modern dating scene. Now, I did grow up being exposed to internet pornography. And, you know, pornography and internet dating are just like a pretty toxic combination, and have like created a pretty toxic culture that's not really like so much out in the open, because it's like, if it's exposed, it's pretty embarrassing actually what can happen like behind the scenes of a dating app, and what's going on, you know, behind the scenes of pornography. But it's going on, and yeah, there's good and there's bad with you know, modern, you know, the discussion around masculine and the balance. And yeah, I think it's very, very true what Laura says, that we're, you know, holding on this like ancient view of masculinity, that's the protector, that's riding the horse and going out and killing the bad guys. And in a way, it's like it's reinforced by the superhero culture and all that in a way. But that's becoming more balanced too. You know, we have Black Widow and all that.
Robin just came out as gay. I'm not sure.
So yeah, I think there's good and bad. I think a lot of what Ken Wilber talks about comes to mind for me, is just as our, you know, societies become more complex and we evolve to new levels, there's going to be new issues that come up with it. And if we don't solve these issues that we have now, we're not gonna evolve. We're not gonna be ready for that next leap. So, you know, what does it mean? What does it mean to be ready?
Oh. Thank you, Michael. I felt that. And I think you're alluding to the human nature of backlash. Our resistance to change is part of our nature. And so even if change is for the better, there are forces that hold us back. And the backlash effect, I see that happening at a meta level right now with the rise of the divine feminine. There's a backlash against that. The divine feminine is on the move. It is in consciousness, impacting the planet right now in major ways. And at the same time, there's a backlash. And this is not an intention. This is just our nature as humans, and how we are slow to change. And I'm going to pause there because Nora has her hand up. Nora, I did not see your hand is almost the color of your wall there.
It wasn't immediate, but I found something. I just wanted to, because there's all this, you know, imbalance of power, and I was thinking mature power. Now I'm thinking old guys in charge, and you know, the divine feminine, I feel, and the sacred masculine have to come into a balance together. And I just wanted to read something that's really short. It's less than 30 seconds to just balance this energy, because this is where I focus on the male energy. And I'm a mother of a 21-year-old son who I'm really proud of. I think he's a really good guy. But this is about the sacred masculine, and this keeps me going about men. I believe in sensitive and kind men. I believe in the mystical men who believe in themselves. I believe in men who seek temperance and peace inside themselves. I believe in men, poets, dreamers, magicians, writers, alchemists, artists, teachers, and angels. I believe in men who like to dance and sing and make life a celebration. I believe in men who embrace their wounded inner child, listen to him and embrace him true. I believe in men who want to heal and help heal others. I believe in men who refuse to be slaves to their own wound and that despite that pain, they clean it and heal it patiently with love and courage. I believe in men who come from the stars and remember the power of their wings, the power of their hands, and the power of their heart. I believe in men who know of intuition and use it as their compass. I believe in men who share freedom because they are free and do not know another way to live. I believe in men protective of women's energy who know how to read and look for their beloved and who do not intend to change it, simply accompany it wise on their flight. I believe in full men who don't need anything from the outside because they already know that they have everything on the inside. And it goes on a little bit longer. I want to share it with you guys as a link because to me, it's like it just raises that energy. Like we're partners, like we're supposed to lift each other up. And if the yin yang is the male feminine energy, like we have to restore that balance together, not separate. And it's not, and I feel like when I've stepped into my masculine energy, I actually become toxic. When I've had to step up and do all this stuff and take on all these roles that maybe I want to be softer or freer, it's hard even for women to balance their masculine, feminine. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you, Nora. Yes, please include the link. And I think that comment of a woman expressing masculine energy comes both with difficult reception and difficult internal feeling is a sign of what we're living and why we call this retreat, why it's needed so much now. What if there was a forward moving force that had precision, that did have force, that was also balanced by gentleness, that was balanced by a regard for Mother Earth. And what I see in my own journey, and I have a 17-year-old son, is that either or, that feeling like, how does the integration happen? When I was really struggling with what does it mean to be a man, I started a men's group to work that out. And this was years ago. And what I expressed to those men is, I know that the way we've been doing manhood does not work. And I don't know what the alternative is, and I want to seek that with you. I'm so glad I did that. Men coming together is so important. And it's interesting now that I look back upon that time, how my identity is no longer wrapped up in me being a man. That if we can shed our cultural baggage enough and be participating with the forces of well-being, which I call consciousness, and whether I see myself as a man or don't see myself as gendered at all, it doesn't matter. I know that there are times when there's a certain force called for in order to bring about well-being, and sometimes there's a call for a different force. And can I manifest them both? Can I manifest them all? Because they're not just two. The masculine and feminine principles do work in sync with one another, but they don't encapsulate all of consciousness. So my journey is one of being so worried about, am I manly enough? Do I know how to be a man? Am I capable of being a man? Then falling into the arms of men, metaphorically and literally, and finding a way to let go of that question.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, well, thanks, Todd. You led right into what I was thinking, but I'll use the word spirit. And one thing I try to do, and I'm not saying I'm successful at it very often, is to realize that I'm just playing a role and then try to visually, I'm a visual person, move myself, my consciousness to the next level, whatever that is, if it's a fourth dimension, fifth dimension, however, until I get to where the oneness of consciousness is and try to see each person that way. And again, I don't claim that I can do that very often, but if I can get to that level, then I can say, I'm not a man. And I can say, there's no such thing as, for me, as feminine or masculine divine consciousness. I want to get to the place where that doesn't exist. I want to get back to my source of who I am in spirit, because I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. So if I can get up to that point, then I can come back down the branching and, okay, I'm going to be a masculine branch of divine energy. And now I'm going to go into a body that looks like a male body, and I'm going to have that masculine energy. But wait a minute, maybe it would be better to go back up and start out as feminine energy and at some point go into a masculine body as the dominant. So we've got all kinds of branching possibilities, especially if this is a computer simulation that we live in, and that we're not men and we're not women. We're in a simulation and we are one in consciousness with the source. And Todd, you use consciousness, so I thought, well, maybe that's a way to think about it. One of my songs I have, God is not a white or black man or woman, and we are not men and women with bodies that deteriorate and die. That's not who we are. Now I'm going to play that role, and I hope I can play it better than I've played it sometimes in a masculine body, but that's not who I am. Oh.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, all these categories, they're helpful in understanding who we are and what we're doing, but they don't encapsulate it. So, and it also, it's my belief that each one of us is a unique being that has unique gifts that are brought to the world, even when we don't try, that those gifts contribute. And the uniqueness of those gifts are not as men and women, they're just as a being. And it's a hard conversation to have in men's work because we get so obsessed with being men and because it's such a troublesome state right now. So with my son, I don't encourage him to be a man. I encourage him to be himself.
You know, Todd, I appreciate that and what you also said about how you were asking yourself the question. Because if reflecting on my life and growing up and going through school and getting the first job and all of that, the stuff that we're expected to do, you know, I've sort of come to terms with that question, you know, are you a man? is really just a projection of what other people are expecting, like, you to be as a man, or what to do, what to believe, how to behave, and this is the wisdom part, maybe, so speaking now, because as I reflect on all that, I realize, well, I mean, and this also goes to what I think Tom was saying, is that, you know, I am, and then I'm somehow always, if I'm really aware of it, I can get in touch with who I am, which is not masculine or feminine. It is, whether you want to call it grounded in spirit, or something else. And I realized, like, that I always am connected to that I am, whatever that is. Like, I am is who I am, and everything else that I get mixed up about in answering the question, am I manly enough, to use your words, Todd, is because it's been projected on me from others.
Mm-hmm.
And that has created a lot of discord. So I'm grateful for the benefit of the wisdom now, where I've been able to, in doing my own men's work, not care so much about the projections, because to me those are illusions, and I'm not here to satisfy somebody else's projections, but to really express my I amness. All easier said than done, of course.
Thank you, Stephen. We should add that Stephen and I were in a men's group for a little while together when we both lived in Chicago, which neither of us do anymore. But that men's group that we were in Chicago still goes on to this day, with a number of men that I've never met. So it's fun to reflect that energy continues. I'm wondering about the people who have not shared, and you have no obligation to share whatsoever, but there's an invitation to Katie and Richard and Joyce and Pete. If there's something on your heart about the conversation that's taken place so far.
Well, for me, you know, masculinity has always come with the role models in my life, like my older family members, and how to be a man. And you know, there's my father, my uncles, and some cousins, and that's always been like my guiding post for how to behave. And I got born into this role this lifetime, and who knows what I'll be doing next time. But it's you know, I've been through. I agree that men have to get together and have community too, and that's part of the reason why I joined tonight, because I haven't been participating. I've been self-quarantining so much that I'm kind of lonely now, and it's there's just the role models that society puts onto you too, for how a man should behave in a certain situation, and it's interesting though. But I'm just grateful that groups like this can go on and have these kind of discussions. To you know, my first exposure to the men's movement was Robert Bly, from a book my dad gave me, and he wrote me a letter in that when I was in college that I still have, and it was a very touching letter about how he would go out driving in a truck with his father, who was a truck driver, and how men have to kind of have this silent warrior role in doing well in the world. And that was always very influential in my life. So I'm just grateful I had those role models, because I think of friends that I hear that don't have family members, or maybe, you know, they don't have good relationships with their parents and stuff. And you know, it's that's I think those things are important. So.
Thank you, Pete, and welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Robert Bly had a impact on my journey too. Reading Iron John was confounding to me, and then only on the second read did I start to feel some things. Any of the other people who have not had a chance to speak yet feel drawn to speak? No obligation whatsoever.
I just wanted to reflect that the discussion went from such practical topics like who we learn how to be a man from, you know, it happens through our families, and we're teaching that, you're teaching that to your child, and I'm teaching that to my child every day. And yeah, one thing that came to mind was every once in a while he'll get this idea, he wants to be a princess, he wants to dance. So we put one of Melissa's blouses on him, one of her blouses on him. It looks like a dress or whatever. And it's so amusing to me. And just hearing this discussion tonight, it's not that he's a boy and he should be acting like a boy. It's not that he's a boy and he's acting like a girl. It's just that he's having fun and he's being himself.
Yeah.
And that's what joy is. And really anything other than that is illusory. And these roles that we fall into, that we're pushed into, man and woman, and in a way it's just another face of duality, a way that we're taught to survive in the material world. And part of surviving in the material world is staying in the material world, right? And if we keep this identification of man and woman, it's just tying us more and more to a material life, a material identification. And yeah, and transcending that into spirit is really what's beautiful. That's where the real power is. And one thing that really stuck with me from my lessons with the Krishna movement is we're worshiping Krishna as a man, and he's standing next to Radha as a woman. And yeah, there's like this idea that we're worshiping a divine man and a divine woman. But what we're really worshiping is the love between them, the energy that is existing between them. We're not just worshiping Krishna. We're not just worshiping Radha. We're not just worshiping God or the goddess. But what is really attractive there, what's really beautiful there, is the energy, the exchange between them. And that's spirit. That's what's transcendental.
Yes.
And yeah, we can use those masculine and those feminine aspects, but they have to be in balance, or else that energy doesn't exist, essentially.
Thank you, Michael. And I want to also thank you on behalf of the planet and everyone else for, as a parent, making space for your son to experiment freely, without letting any reactions or judgments cloud the desire to learn who we are. And so that is a gift to him, to that being. But it's more than that. Like that's part of the transformation we're in. That's not about gender. It's more than gender identity. It's more than categories. And it has a lot to do with living in harmony with nature, which is way beyond category.
So I'd like to jump in here for a minute.
Go for it, E.T.
Okay. Because I'm thinking masculine and feminine, the concepts of that, what that is represents way energy expresses itself through consciousness. And it's not necessarily physical biology, of course, but those expressions are affected by the biology and through the activity of people's emotions. I think in getting back to Nora's first hit on it, or triggering, because consciousness depends on the lens you look at and your beliefs and whatnot, and those are all trained within our world. So to me, coming into this, I saw the term mature masculine power as how do I step into expressing something that needs expression on this planet, not, the more obvious, which is mature being old, masculine, and power. Those are all toxic concepts, right, to begin with. And let's not confuse in that term that what's toxic is immaturity. We're dealing with toxic immaturity and boys and men are deeply, deeply affected by toxic immaturity growing up and throughout life. And it's to all of the effects, and it's blowback too all the way through in relationships and everything. So as if you're not for a second to minimize how that toxic immaturity has, suppressed and affected and been toxic, very much of an abusive force, but it turned into a controlling force through some people's intentions a long time ago. And that intention was put into the psyche of of certain cultures that then grew like a virus all around the world. And what that was, number one, was cutting off the notion of the mother, cutting off our mother, cutting off our innocence, and then throwing this bullshit on us about original sin. And so all of the ancient concepts that many of the myths are based on were supplanted, and I call it the great reversal, but were also supplanted in the myths. Many of the myths have been highly, highly corrupted. And you have to really dive deep and be very thoughtful about the source of the myths and what the myths are really expressing and whether or not they make sense or not, because a lot of it doesn't. For years and years and years, the sun was considered a feminine energy. The Japanese culture, the goddess Amaterasu is the sun goddess, and that's one of the ancients. But without getting into that so much, it's like, who am I as a concept, as masculine, was deeply programmed growing up. And I fought that because it didn't make sense. I remember as a kid thinking, adults don't know what they're doing as they're bulldozing all the woods that I know is full of magic. And I remember intimately, clearly, as if I'm there right now, 9 years old, walking on the way to school, looking at one of these sites, Elbrook Drive, where there was a really cool beech tree back in the woods. And oh man, it was so cool. And they were just bulldozing it all and building this stupid ticky-tack shit houses. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 9 years old. So expressing consciousness and then reflecting back what you see and experience is part of our acculturation. And when there's a meme that's been injected into our culture from way, way back, and it's replicated all the way through, and of course, that goes into the whole colonization and just the genocides and stuff that tried to wipe out through concerted efforts and edicts, every place where a circle was built in the indigenous cultures. And the circle doesn't represent just feminine. It represents the creative egg of the cosmos. Yes, the womb is the physical materialization, and it's sacred. And it's what sacred comes from. A red sack. Sacred. A red sack. It's what came out when my child was born. And there's a red sack with a tree on it. There's nothing more sacred than the continuity of life. And that concept has to be re-emerged, re-embedded in our mind to take over all this other stuff. And I think that's the role being played cyclically by this Aquarian energy construct coming in to affect consciousness, because that's what it is. It's like, beam me some new consciousness, man, because it's gotten out of hand here. So thank you for listening. That is so great.
Thank you, E.T. We have this recorded. Just to let everyone know, it's recorded. That was profound. So I am in the midst, about 8 months into writing a book called Navigating the Mess. It's not about masculine and feminine. It's not about men and women. It's not about any of that. It's about why we need a new approach, because these times are complex. They've always actually been complex, but we've oversimplified in the industrial age, and the paradigm of control has ruled us for, you could argue, for 200 years, or you could argue for 500 years. And it's my opinion that part of patriarchy originates from the desire to control, the seeming dichotomy between that which is gentle and that which is wild. Because feminine power is not just gentle, it's wild. And the fear of that wildness is why we've destroyed our planet, ignored it. And so the paradigm of control it doesn't work anymore. And there's so many people who realizes like this is not working. And so what you said, E.T., was like that was a eloquent way for me of encapsulating how that which is life is uncontrollable. And we've been pretending we can control for too long. And just to be clear, masculine power or masculine principle has nothing to do with control. Nothing at all. That's a distortion.
Yeah, we can all take a breath of that one.
So Stephen and I, we've entitled this retreat coming up in October, Fully Alive and Ready. That's the subtitle. And I would love for Stephen to share a little bit, like, what does that mean to you, Stephen, to be
Yeah.
fully alive and ready?
Yeah. So I'm going to dovetail on ET's comments with that one because, I really have a deep reverence for what you said about how intuitively, as a child, you knew things were messed up, and you were sensing, in my interpretation, you correct me if I'm wrong, you were sensing that there was an imbalance in the aliveness. And I said, in one of my passion words at the beginning of all this was life, and then earth was the second one. And I feel fully alive when I'm connected with the earth. I'm an earthling. We're all earthlings. And I love to claim that because that's how I feel fully alive. Every physical component that is me is of the earth. I did not appear as some separate being. None of us did. And just to contemplate that, just to sit in contemplation and to realize that we are of and in and are the ecosystem of this planet. And it's like, that's such an awesome thought. And that's for me what's fully alive. And if I am to take my, let's go back to an earlier word, like my protective responsibilities for that, that's what inspires me. And it excites me to be with all of you as fellow earthlings, and to feel that it's not up to me alone. So also the difference between being a protector and being a savior.
Mm. Mm.
The saviors have projected on them that he is the one who's going to save us all. Protectors can come in communities.
Mm.
So in the spirit of that is how I feel fully alive.
Isn't this guy awesome? We've been friends for quite some time, and it's a joy to be able to. We've led workshops before, but we've never led a retreat together before. So it's really exciting for me. When I look at the world right now, I see a lot of people who are very busy, who are very anxious, who are very numb. And it breaks my heart, partly because I understand why that's the case. That's kind of the result of the systems that we are in, that it leaves you busy and numb in order to get by. And the feeling of being fully alive is, I have energy, not just to take care of myself, but to take care of those I love, to take care of the planet, to be a caretaker without sacrificing myself. And to be fully alive is a state in which all sorts of things happen, like creativity. When you're creative, you feel fully alive, and when you're fully alive, you feel creative. And we need creativity right now. And the ready part, what is happening with climate change, with our political system, with our economic systems, with our education systems, our food systems? We could just go on and on and on. is that the planning approach, the master planning approach, and the static viewing the world as static is not sufficient for the times we live in. And so we're not going to be able to think nor plan our way out of this. So we need a high level of adaptability. If we are energized and adaptable, and that is contagious, the world is going to transform. We have the force of consciousness behind us. So to me, being ready means whatever comes, we can work with it. And there's emotions that come with that, and grief and anger and fear, and all of those are welcome, and they need not be limiting. So I kind of ask myself each day, am I ready for this day? Some days I'm not. But the ready is not like, do I have all the details worked out? The ready is, do I have the level of presence and openness and connection that I can deal with what comes? And I feel like with the retreat, it's not like you can come for a weekend and feel ready, but maybe you can have a taste of what it feels like to be connected and open. And we're not going to be having long, endless discussions. It's going to be very experiential. There's going to be exercises, time in nature. There will be discussions. There will be sharing. There'll be time by yourself. And Stephen and I have worked on segments that can bring people into connection with themselves, with their environment, and with each other, to deal with the most soulful stuff that we can on a weekend. So Stephen and I just talked, we just gave too many talks. We're open to questions, responses, whatever's on your heart. I see Joyce leaning forward. Are you going to unmute, Joyce? No. You're teasing us.
I was just going to say I really enjoy this conversation and the dialogue, and I love that, there's a women's retreat and a men's retreat, but having the dialogue with the men and the women, and even about being resilient and ready and making change together and partnering, I just think is beautiful. So I thank you guys so much for this salon. I think it was really, really stimulating. I like the interaction.
Thank you, Nora.
Tom's got his hand up.
Yeah, I see that, Tom.
Just one comment. I think Pete said that, use the phrase "in this lifetime," I believe, and I think that would be another aspect of a retreat that could be profitably explored, because certainly, the main institution that has done reincarnation research is University of Virginia Division of Conceptual Studies. Ian Stevenson did it for 50 years. And once in a while, someone does come back, man or woman, and they weren't man or woman before. People change. So that may be another aspect of it. The research is very, very solid. It's ignored by most of academia, of course, even the University of Virginia, the rest of it. But it's very solid. So what does that mean? That the research shows that you can come back, you can change from being a man to a woman, and vice versa. That may be a subject of discussion that would yield something. So thank you, Pete, for saying that. I think you said that in this lifetime, you're a man.
You never know what you're going to prompt, Pete. Thank you, Tom.
Well, I have no doubt that we come back and that we've all been here many, many times. I went swimming with the dolphins one time. It was pretty interesting. They had me sobbing as I went back to Atlantis and laughing my head off as I swam back with them back to the present. And it was like, it was real clear what they were saying. You just keep doing it till you get it right. Yeah.
They're so fun to see in the wild too, because they are that playful and curious. What enchanting creatures. You're lucky, E.T.
Yeah, we're all lucky to be here on the planet at this time, that we can do the work that's needed and experience this change. It's cosmic proportions. It's really cool. And I want to share one little thing real quick, is that when you were talking, Stephen, I had this picture because I mentioned when I was a child, and the imbalance that we have to right. We've all been on a teeter-totter, right? And it's a lot of fun, up and down, up and down. And when someone like gets it in their craw to like jump off, it's like, it hurts because you're just going down and you can't react in time and you go slam. So that's our job, is to learn how to play well with others and be in balance on the teeter-totter. Okay.
Thank you, E.T. Laura.
Yeah, we're getting near the end of our time together, and I had one final thought I would like to share. I had a really productive and just really educational weekend once, taking a class in the Kabbalion. I'm not sure if Pete Z was there for that. This was through the Lakota group that was doing a Sundance Sweat Lodge at my old farm. And believe it or not, this Lakota group was really into Hermetic principles, ancient stuff. And there's a book called The Kabbalion, which it's unauthored, except it's on sacred text. Anyone can read it quite easily. It supposedly was written by 3 of Hermes' Thoth initiates. And it's the 7 laws of the universe. And one of the reasons why this particular view of cosmology has stuck with me is that in this book, they claim that initiates were taught that the very first law of the universe is the law of gender. And I revisited that part of the Kabbalion in the book I'm writing right now called The Light and the New Human, because I find it both poignant and stressful that we either are or we're not going to finally collectively get the law of gender. If we don't get it, I think it's a major do-over. All systems are going to collapse on this planet. If we do learn the law of gender, we're going to get to advance collectively to a next stage, a new paradigm. So it's been really fun to reopen local campus, focusing, yes, on a women's retreat and then a men's retreat, and to have this discussion tonight. And I, for one, couldn't be more dedicated to assisting others in understanding the relationship between the masculine and the feminine. So thank you both, Stephen and Todd, and everyone who shared tonight, and everyone who's here. It's just been a really wonderful discussion.